I would say that it wasn't so much that I was seeking really the heights of spirituality. I think I was seeking a way of trying to get myself out of the mess that I was in. And when I asked him the question, I said, do you think that liberation is possible in this lifetime? And he said to me, in this, what we call the Kali Yuga, where the degeneration of the samskaras and the living style, he said he doesn't believe it's possible. We've come across this term, we didn't have it in those days, what we call the flow moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Being in the flow.
Yeah.
And I believe that that's what what you experience when you're on the wave and you're surfing. There was a lot of question and answer time with Charji, who made himself very available, answered a lot of questions about the practice, etc. And a question by one of the Abhyasis said, Charji, we're going back to France or Germany, etc. What sort of company, whose company should we keep once we go back?
Woof woof. Welcome to KANHACAST. Today I'm speaking to John Smith. John Smith is a long-time heartfulness practitioner and a yoga trainer. He was in fact the first heartfulness practitioner or Abhyasi in Australia. Thank you so much, John, for taking time out and on your last day here and coming to the Kana studio. It's such a joy to have you here.
Thank you, Rudy. It's a joy to be here. It's a joy to be in Kanha, and a little bit sad to be thinking that I'm leaving this evening so soon.
And what's been the highlight of your trip here so far?
Well, the highlight is always to have a chance to meet Daji.
That's so true.
I mean, that is the highlight. And myself and Daniel were blessed. We got to meet Daji one evening and had some time with him. And, that sort of completes the experience. We've had some phenomenal personal meditations, group meditations, interactions with other brothers and sisters. And all of that is such a joy. It just coming back to meet people again and again and just connecting on that egregor with the heart. And feeling that presence within each and every person, each and every brother and sister here. But, to have that little moment with Daji is the sort of, you might we say sometimes in English, the icing on the cake.
Yes, the cherry on top.
The cherry on top, the cherry on top, yeah. And, if you don't get that cherry on top, it sort of doesn't feel complete somehow.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. And your trip also coincided, you were speaking about egregor right now, It coincided with the group of Transcendental Meditation people who were here, 10,000 for World Peace. They had a program.
Yes.
This is something very new that, of course, Daji has started to bring everyone together at Ghana. What was that experience like of having all these people from, they do a different form of meditation, but they were here for essentially the same cause, which is inner peace and outer peace?
Yes. And, first of all, I have to recommend or sort of give my respects to that group and for what they were aiming to do, to come together for that egregor to bring world peace in this world. So that's an amazing thing to want to do. And of course, it's very much in alignment with heartfulness practices and, creating world peace and that egregor. But can I take you back many, many, many years, if that's okay, Rudy?
Of course, please.
Even before I joined heartfulness practice?
Yes, please.
My very first form of yoga practice was Transcendental Meditation.
Wow.
Yes.
And where was this?
This was in Sydney, where I grew up. I was about 19 years of age. And I was going through that sort of transitional period of trying to find, what is my purpose in life? What are my aims? And what was I here for? You start to ask yourself those questions. And of course, I was with my peers, and my peers were maybe not asking those questions. And I was getting influenced with the incorrect influences, like, we're going out to party and seeking pleasures outside.
Of course, at that age, everyone is doing that.
That was pretty normal. And I just remember one time I sort of wake up in the morning with a little bit of a hangover from the night before, and I sort of asked myself this question: this is not what I'm here for, kind of thing. This is not my purpose. There's something that I'm not progressing as a person, and I needed to find something to give me that transformation or feel that more purpose of being here. And fortunately for me, I had two sisters who were practicing TM at the time. And I'll go back a couple of years again, when I was probably about 14, because my sisters had already started practicing TM at that time. And I remember coming into their bedroom and seeing a photo of Maharishi.
Oh, nice.
Yes. So Maharishi was there. His photo was on the wall. He had his long hair, his beard. He was still alive at that time, of course. He's a beautiful beard and looked quite elegant, as most the sannyasi, meditators would look. But what impressed me probably more so was what was written underneath his photo. And underneath his photo was the wording universal love. Now, as a 14-year-old, I probably wouldn't know what universal love really meant, but it somehow put a little seed into my heart. And it sat there and I thought, wow, what a beautiful perspective, what a beautiful thing if we could have that universal love in our life or on this planet amongst each other. And just coming back to that egregore about them being here for pretty much building universal love on what they were here for. So I was very impressed with the wording of universal love as a 14-year-old.
Wow.
And the seed was somehow planted. But it wasn't until the age of 19 that I started really wanting to maybe explore spirituality and find a deeper purpose in my life. And therefore I started with the Transcendental Meditation practice. So for me, it's almost like a 360-degree thing that, Daji's now bringing the Transcendental Meditation group is here practicing TM and the flying techniques, etc. I never did the flying technique. I only did the mantra. I was introduced to the mantra technique, which I did, and found that a very beneficial practice at the time. Being a 19-year-old, I was trying to move away from the negative aspects of what was influencing me.
Sure.
It gave me a focus to do something. And, very quickly, things such as, drinking alcohol, smoking cigarettes, non-veg food were able to leave me.
It just fell away, huh? On its own.
Just fell away. I mean, I wouldn't say just fell away. There was a little bit of
push and pull, a tug of war.
A tug of war. I wouldn't say a tug of war, but there was a couple of times when I regressed a little bit and, and a couple of my mates would say, hey, let's go out for a beer or something. And it happened now and again. But overall, my whole focus changed. I'd go to the pub and I'd drink orange juice.
Wow. And you're from the land where a beer is pretty much thought of as orange juice. It's a soft drink.
It is a soft drink for them. And if you're not drinking beer, what's the matter with you, buddy?
Absolutely. That's so interesting. That's right. And it's good that you had that time after the hangover. So hangovers are sometimes helpful.
Oh, yes. Yes. They certainly are helpful because
it's how you respond to the hangover is interesting because, for a long time, my only response to a hangover was to have another drink so that I'd get rid of it.
Okay.
That doesn't work very well.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. And there was a couple of times when I did that also. Get over the hangover. Let's go and have another drink, or let's go down to the pub and have a few beers down at the pub.
Sure. So you mentioned even your sisters were into meditation.
Yes.
Was this something growing up in your family, that the spiritual surge? Does it?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's hard to know. What led my sisters to get into meditation. I mean, we come from a Christian background, of course, but I would have to say that my parents were quite. How would I say it? They were into their faith, and they wanted us to have a belief in God.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think that was quite important to them, to bring us up in, I suppose, in a way where we had a belief in God and we had a good moral compass to have our direction in life. When my sisters started meditation, and eventually I started meditation, my parents were they accepted us for doing it, but I don't think they understood why we did it. And I think they were also a little bit disappointed in us that we weren't following Christian faith in the way that they were following the Christian faith.
Yeah, absolutely. And in your group there, in your friends and amongst the people you were hanging out with, was it common for people to look up meditation and take up meditation, or was it still a very fringe thing at that time when you started TM?
It was quite a fringe thing, and I think with the peers that I was mixing with, was totally not in their mind to think about doing some form of meditation or yoga practice. My sisters somehow got involved in it, and we sort of probably thought they were kind of a bit strange at the time for doing it. But very thankful for me, because eventually they led me on to coming into, first of all, Transcendental Meditation, which eventually led me coming into Heartfulness some years later.
Lovely.
Yes.
Lovely. And your peers, how did they take it? Suddenly there's John is drinking orange juice while everybody's having a beer at the pub.
Yeah. I have to take my hat off to them, because all of a sudden John goes from drinking beer, smoking cigarettes, going out for parties and having fun, to now someone who's meditating, not drinking beer, not eating meat anymore, but at the same time, they were still happy to have me there. So I was that's what you call a friend.
Sure, yeah.
Because, some of them fell away, but I had a couple of friends who, even with all my changes that I went through, still stuck with me as being a friend, irrespective to what my new focus was in life. And, there wasn't many of them, but a few of them who stuck by me and accepted me for who I was.
It's also a danger sometimes when we take up a process like meditation. Initially we are so into it and so enthusiastic that we start to judge the others. That we may start to judge our peers that, oh, you guys are drinking, you don't know what you're missing out. You're that kind of holier than thou attitude.
Yes.
And kind of separate yourself from the rest. And the others may feel, oh, he's such a killjoy now. All he does is talk about meditation. He doesn't have fun. Was that ever an issue?
Possibly. It might have been more of an issue from their side than from my side. I still was able to integrate with some of them quite okay. And as I said to you, I was into other things that they were also. So we were into surfing, for instance. So we would be out surfing together.
Wow.
And that was something. And, so I don't know if you've ever done surfing at all.
No, never have. But
And surfing can give you that kind of elated feeling.
It's basically like a religion, right? Surfers, they are just out there searching for waves, and it's a whole lifestyle. And
it is a lifestyle.
I have no experience of it, but what I've seen through popular culture, it's a whole different ecosystem.
Yeah. And there's this connection to nature.
Absolutely.
The connection to the water, the connection even to the sea, the sand, the sun, and the feeling that you're sort of connecting to nature on the wave. And when you feel like you've got some mastery of being on that wave and surfing, there's this sort of feeling that it's like, we've come across this term, we didn't have it in those days, what we call the flow moment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Being in the flow.
Yeah.
And I believe that's what what you experience when you're on the wave and you're surfing. And that was my experience. And it was like, wow, this is quite nice.
So you carried on with the surfing
Carried on with the surfing. However, soon, within maybe about a year of doing Transcendental Meditation, I then also got into yoga.
Oh, nice.
As in asana practice.
Of course.
Now, once I got into asana practice, my focus moved away from surfing. And I became very dedicated as a yogi into asana practice.
Sure.
That was the time when I started moving away and shifting away from some of the other peers that I had, because I was now doing yoga, and I had some very lovely yoga teachers in Sydney, and I was like in awe of them, of what they were teaching me and giving me as a lifestyle change.
And so where did work take you? See, John, I've known you for some years, but I have no clue what you do professionally. It's like we meet as fellow meditators, fellow heartfulness, practicing heartfulness, but I have no idea what you do. So where did life take you? What line of work did you follow?
Okay. I'm not a very educated person, I'd have to put it that way. I actually left school when I was about 15 years of age. I dropped out of high school. I did not like academia at all. So I got into a trade, which was kind of what you would do in those days. You'd get into a trade, and I got into the lithographic printing trade.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I got into the lithography trade part of it, and did my trade through there and worked in that environment, in the packaging environment, which I quite enjoyed at the time. And then there was a time when through my work and through my changes that I went through and yoga practice, that I felt a need to then travel to India and just leave everything that I'd done.
Wow. So because of the yoga that you'd done and TM you had done,
Yes.
it somehow all came together and you decided you were coming to India.
Yeah.
How old were you at that time?
I was 24.
24.
Yeah.
And which year would this be? This would be...
That was in 1987.
1987. Wow.
Yeah. Mm.
Wow. So where did heartfulness enter the picture then? Where did Sahaj Marg come in?
Yeah. Okay. So what brought me about to visit India initially was I had a lovely yoga teacher who was teaching me in Sydney, and I was getting a lot of good practice and guidance from him at the time. And then he was leaving to go to Perth, which is on the west coast of Australia. And I felt this sort of void that, who's going to be my teacher? Sure. Who's going to be my guide? And so he suggested that I then go to Mysore in India to go and practice with his guru, who was Sri Pattabhi Jois.
Yes, very famous.
Very famous.
I mean,
one of the students of Krishnamacharya.
Absolutely. And his family continues to run the Mysore Yoga School.
Yeah, way bigger than what it was when the time when I went.
Yes.
And so that was the time when I thought, yes, I'm going to go to India to get some yoga training. In the back of my mind, I always had this feeling that it's not just yoga as in the yoga practice that I want to find a spiritual master and to find the real way to what we might call enlightenment, whatever you want to call it. But somehow, and it was more like a subtle thing in the back. Like even though I was going to Mysore to study with Pattabhi Jois, there was something in the back of my mind that says, I'm going to the land of spirituality. I hope, my deepest hope was that I would find some guidance on the spiritual level with the master. But it was very subtle at that time.
And so how did you then, you came and it's a very strenuous program, the Mysore program.
Very strenuous.
I've heard stories about it. It's like, there's no holidays, you just keep working, and it's physically very strenuous.
Very physically strenuous. Interesting to say that we arrived, I think it was early January, maybe around the 14th or 15th. And in the south, you were talking about there's no holidays. I think we arrived and we got the first 2 days of practice in, and then they did have a holiday.
Oh, Pongal or something.
Like that. Yeah. 4 days off.
Okay.
I was very disappointed. I thought, I don't want to have 4 days off. I came here to do yoga practice. But anyway, we had 4 days off and we sort of moved around. We did a few things and, enjoyed being in India, and then 4 days later we would come back. But then once we came back, it was a tough grill. And the first tough grill was we didn't use yoga mats.
It's so on the ground, huh?
It was cement floor.
Wow.
With when you sit in Manapakam, we had that green carpet.
Yes.
The green carpet was
very thin. Yeah.
On a cement floor.
Wow.
And I didn't have a yoga mat at that stage, but some of the others did have. And we were doing things like rolling on our back. Jeez. And so within the first few days, I was getting all these terrible sores on my back, and I'd have to come to yoga and do this rolling, and it was like almost like a bit of a nightmare sequence coming in until eventually I did get a proper yoga mat. And so it was tough. And there was no, Pattabhi was the person that you're here, I'm here to teach you, and I'm going to give you my 100% to get you to what you've come here for.
Absolutely. So he was dedicated to you becoming good.
He was dedicated to the aspirants who were there. Full 100%. And he pushed you to your limit. And you were like within 4 months, I went from probably being a very average yoga practitioner to going into the series 2.
Wow.
That's the
series 2 is a higher level?
Slightly higher level.
Wow.
So you get into more advanced practices. Heads behind the leg.
Oh, the
heads behind the leg, hands in namaste. My head's behind my leg.
Incredible.
Both legs behind the head.
Wow.
Full splits.
Oh my.
Yeah, I have to show you some photos.
That's crazy. So you completed that entire course, did you?
I was there. We planned to be for 3 months. Mm-hmm. There was another sister who came with me. She was a friend of mine. She was also a devoted yogi, and we went there and we practiced together. she decided to leave after 3 months. And while we were in India, we both found another passion as well as yoga. My passion became tabla.
Oh, wow.
So I liked music, but for some reason, the South Indian music and Carnatic music was something that really appealed to me. And the other sister that I was, she got into dance.
Oh,
she got into Bharatanatyam.
Wow.
And I got into tabla, but with Carnatic style tabla. So, so I learned tabla, got into a passion of learning music and studying Carnatic
So you're
music.
becoming less and less of an Aussie and more of an Indian.
Exactly right. Maybe there must have been some past samskaras, I think, or something there that led me back into,
Wow. Interesting. So where did Sahaj Marg feature then with tabla and yoga, and how do you end up with Sahaj Marg?
How do I end up with Sahaj Marg? It's a good question. I think it was every Saturday afternoon, we'd have a kind of philosophy session with Pattabhi Jois. And he would go into depths of talking about yoga, the asana, the importance of pranayama. His English was not very good, so it was a bit difficult for us to follow because he would sometimes quote Sanskrit as well and go into the sutras, Patanjali sutras, which was lovely. However, I think after about 3 months, we were talking about liberation, moksha, in the tradition of it as we know it. Freeing yourself from the entanglements of bondage, being able to be free from rebirth, etc. For me, that was something that was, from my readings of, spirituality, especially Indian philosophy, this is something that's attainable. And when I asked him the question, I said, do you think that liberation is possible in this lifetime? And he said to me, in this, what we call the Kali Yuga, where the degeneration of the samskaras and the living style, he said he doesn't believe it's possible.
Oh, okay.
He didn't believe that it's possible to have liberation.
Within a lifetime, yeah.
Within this lifetime and in this kind of yuga. And I thought, what am I doing here? What am I spending 3 hours doing this intense training for and hammering myself every day if my teacher doesn't think that liberation is possible? And it made me have to reflect. And it made me come back to that idea of this subtle suggestion that I had earlier about wanting to find a spiritual teacher, not just a yoga teacher. I never really looked at Pattabhi Jois as some sort of guru. I mean, I wouldn't say that I didn't see him as a guru. He's a great teacher of yoga.
Of course.
What he taught on that level, he taught the hatha yoga, the pranayama practices exceptionally well, and he was fantastic at it. But he didn't seem to be coming from this higher level of someone from a high level of spiritual attainment giving the teachings.
So you were looking for the ultimate sort of evolution that you could undergo on a spiritual level. And you did, I think your teacher's words probably told you that perhaps this is not where I'm going to get it, because if he doesn't believe that it's possible, you wanted to find out where it was possible.
Correct. However, I think you might be painting my picture a little bit big.
Maybe you just wanted to stay off the beer.
I would say that it wasn't so much that I was seeking really the heights of spirituality. I think I was seeking a way of trying to get myself out of the mess that I was in.
Okay.
I think that might be more realistic.
Absolutely. I think most of us start at that point, right?
Yes. Yeah. So it was saying like, I'm here, I'm in this life, and I'm suffering.
And I have no clue what it's about.
And I've got no clue how I got into the state of suffering. I've got no idea of how I get out of the state of suffering. But I do know that there's this teaching that says you can get out of it. But that was books. So how do we go from the knowledge of that it's there to the experiencing of what can get us out of this mess that we got ourselves in? Because several years of practicing TM, several years of practicing hatha yoga and pranayama, etc., I still felt like I was still in the same kind of mess that I was when I started. I mean, of course, some transitions and improvements are there, no doubt, and some refinements were there.
And physically, obviously,
and physically much fitter. And what I was capable of doing physically, I was incredible. But a journey always has its moments of, or nature will say to you, okay, where do you want to go from here? And somehow it sort of either creates a difficult situation, which I felt like here I was in the land of India, different languages, different belief systems, different food habits, which were very strange for me and quite difficult.
Of course, yeah.
So I did get quite sick as well, to a moment where I thought I would even die while I was here in India because I was so sick. And then not dying, but then also knowing that, hey, what am I really here for? And after Patabi said he didn't feel that liberation was possible, I wanted to, and I was coming towards the end of my session with him, I thought, let me go and find, if it's possible, can I find a guide who feels it is possible and can take me on that journey? So that was that moment.
And so where all did your search take you after that, then after Mysore?
Okay. So my first search was more local.
Within Mysore?
Within Mysore,
Yeah.
because I was still there training. I still had a few weeks or a month left to go. And I visited one or two ashrams. And of course, you'd visit the ashram and they'd do some homa, purification practices and whatever. And I wanted to meet the guru who was there. And you'd see him in his beautiful orange robes, looking quite splendid, with his beautiful beard, like the very guru kind of look. And then going there again and asking the guru, do you think it's possible to get liberation in this lifetime? And the answer was the same.
Not in Kali Yuga.
Not in Kali Yuga. We can only be here to be in praise of the Lord, to praise God and to be in this praising until the time changes that we can get liberation. And so that happened 2 or 3 times. A friend of mine we decided that we would travel to Tiruvannamalai to go and visit the Ramana Maharshi ashram there. I read about Ramana Maharshi. He passed away, I think, in 1950 sometime.
Okay.
But I heard so much about Tiruvannamalai and how a spiritual place that was, and I thought that would maybe be a nice place to visit.
Of course.
Maybe find some answer there.
Of course.
So we traveled on a bus, and I don't know, buses in India in those days were pretty tough.
Yes.
I think we had a wooden seat.
Yeah,
with
blank
seat, and you were there for several hours bumping around.
Yes.
So by the time you actually got to the destination, it was...
Thank God you were a yogi.
Yeah, I think so. So it was a tough journey. And we arrived and we spent some time there. And it was, again, a nice place. And we walked around the hills. But
yeah, everyone talks about Arunachala, the vibrations of the hills.
Yes.
Yeah. Did you feel any of that? Did you feel a special energy there?
Yes, there is a special energy there. There's no doubt about it. It's like if you come to Kanha, there's a special energy. And there's definitely a special energy there. And you feel it. However, as Ramana had passed away, there was no living guru anymore. There was no, what would we say, the leader was no longer there. It was just a practice.
Sure. And his sayings in books.
And sayings in books, etc. And there was a Mahasamadhi there of Ramana, and you'd go there and meditate. And I think the meditation was Aham Brahmasi, that thou art, or I am that type of thing. And if you don't have that divinity within you, which I probably didn't have at that time, I couldn't experience it. I'm only meditating on my own samskaras or, my own inadequacies or whatever. And so I found that didn't give me the real search as well. And when I was coming back from visiting the Arunachala, it's called?
Arunachala, yeah.
Arunachala.
Yeah.
I was feeling so desperate. So, I don't know, I was thinking, I'm here in India. Is there really a path? Is there really a guru that, and I was praying to God. I was crying. I was in tears. I was crying. I said, dear God, if there is a guru, a master of capacity, of capability who can guide me and take me to the path, can I please find him? So I think I had to get to that level of crying, of desperation, of asking God, may I find the teacher? And then it was probably within a few days after that I went back to Mysore, was still doing my practice there. And then a sister came. She came from Chennai. She'd been with Jaraji for a month, and she came to do some training, and I looked into her eyes and I said, "What have you been doing?" Because
just her eyes, just the look in the eyes.
Just the look in the eyes.
Wow.
And she said to me, "Oh, I've been practicing Sajmarg with, and the Charaji was there and getting sittings with every day." And just to look at her, and Charaji would say, the eyes are the gateway to the soul. And when I was looking at her eyes, it's like I was looking at her soul. And I said to her, "What have you been doing? You have to share with me what you've been doing, because whatever it is, I want it."
I'll have what you're having.
Yes, I want that. And so she sort of explained to me about Sajmarg, as we called it in those days. And then she said that I will introduce you to one of the preceptors there. And eventually I met the preceptor in Mysore. There was only one in those days. And he talked me about it. And I went to his home and I seen the photos of the masters there. But I don't know, I had some skeptical...
Of course, because you'd been on a search for so long.
I've been on a search for so long.
And you hadn't found what you're looking for.
I hadn't found, but I didn't want to just think I'm just going to jump into this without knowing a little bit more about it. And even though the preceptor was very nice and he said, "This is how we do the practices. We meditate on the heart. There's cleaning." He even talked about the transmission. Didn't really make much sense to me at that moment, but I said, okay, it all sounds good. But I didn't start. What I did do, and I'm a bit like Thomas the Doubter, because I was doubting whatever they were saying, I decided, instead of doing my mantra meditation in the morning, since he told me you meditate on the heart, I didn't take a sitting. I just thought I'll do this meditation in the morning. So I took the divine light. I meditated in the morning, my 20 minutes that I would normally devote to my mantra meditation, and I meditated like that. I didn't really feel any experience in the meditation. It was the Sunday, it was our day off. And normally on that day off, we would travel there's a special hill in Mysore called Chamundi Hill.
Yeah, Chamundi Hill.
There's a special temple there, and the Sunday, a lot of people go there to worship, and there's a market, etc. there. So I was on my own. I decided I would go to Chamundi Hill and just have a nice day up there. And coming back to this talk about universal love, which I'd never experienced, but knew that it was possible, here I was, after doing this meditation on the heart for 20 minutes, was on a bus with I was the only Westerner on the bus. I didn't understand language. Culture was very different. I don't know who anyone else was on that bus. But this subtle essence of feeling a connection to everyone on that bus, as if they felt like my family.
Wow.
The first time I ever felt that. And I thought, where did this come from? And I felt that was my first experience of universal love. It touched me so much.
Wow.
And that was just from meditating on the heart. I didn't take a sitting. I didn't get cleaning. I just did the meditation.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
That's incredible. So then did you kind of connect the dots and you said, okay, I did that, so should I go get a sitting?
Absolutely. I thought, wow, that's what it's doing. That's pretty good. Yeah. Even though the sister looked fantastic and she looked very bright and everything, I still had to I think I had to do some little test.
Of course.
And of course the test the experiment proved well. As Daji would say, he says, we're the laboratory, we're the experimenter.
Absolutely.
It was a successful test.
Absolutely.
And it sort of convinced me that, okay, let's follow this and see what it can lead to.
And did the sittings kind of put the stamp on it that, this is...
I would have to say that the 3 introductory sittings I didn't really feel too much in. I don't know why. There's probably there was a lot of work happening, but I didn't really feel that it sort of didn't really put any real extra stamp on it. The first thing that put the next stamp was I attended the first group meditation. And where the preceptor lived, he had a small room, probably not much bigger than these cameras in this area that were around us.
Oh, wow.
It was very small. And we had roughly 20 people sitting in there. So it was a squash.
Stuffed in, yeah.
Stuffed in. So we were like sardines in this little room and cross-legged on the floor, no cushions. Even though I was a yogi, that was going to be tough. And so I sat down. The preceptor, it was his brother-in-law who was visiting. I can't remember where he's coming from, but he said, please start meditation. I started meditation. I think it was okay for about 15 minutes. Now, after 15 minutes, my legs started to pain. My sit bones were paining. I couldn't move my legs because if I moved my legs, whoever's in front of me,
Sure.
I would be bumping. If I
Sure.
tried to move my legs this way, I would be bumping. I can't move. I just have to stay still. And it was agonizing. I have to say that I was in a deep agony during most of that meditation. And then when he said, "That's all," I thought, "Oh, fantastic.
What a relief."
That was bliss. I could move my legs. And it was funny because I didn't meditate at all during the whole session. But again, after I came out, I went to meet some friends for dinner. And then it was like, I was in a different atmosphere. I was present. I was sitting at a table eating dinner with people. But I felt like there was a heavenly atmosphere around me. Like I'm in a different world.
Wow.
This was unbelievable. I just couldn't, it was something I could never even imagine you could experience. And there I was. And I was trying to think, hey, you guys, do you know that heaven is can be felt? And I was trying to explain to them, I did this meditation and I'm feeling like I'm in this space, but they couldn't relate.
They couldn't
to me.
understand.
They couldn't understand.
Yeah.
They were into their yoga practices and things like that. Nice people, and I was trying to say to them, "Oh, I'm in this beautiful space. You should try and do it." It's like, but they just couldn't really relate to what I was trying to say, and that sort of stamped that heartfulness, or Sahaj Marg as we call it in those days, natural path, was definitely something I wanted to, go deeper into.
Absolutely.
And I was finishing up in I think that was probably around about the 2nd of May, and so I booked my flight from. I was in Mysore, but I took the train from Mysore and I booked a flight from Bangalore to Chennai, or in Madras as it was called in those days, to come and visit Charaji.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought I want to go and visit the Guru now. I feel this has got something very special to it. It's given me some very special experiences. And so I want to come and meet the Guru. And so I didn't even write to Charaji to say I'm coming. I just decided I'm going to come and
show up.
Got my bag, got on the train, took a flight, arrived in Chennai. Didn't know where I was going to go to, but I knew that there was a bus that took us near to his place and near to where he lived. And so from there, I took a little rickshaw to find out how to get to his place, and I arrived. At the time of arrival, Charaji was sleeping, so I didn't get to meet him, but some other brothers and sisters were there, and they just said, "Look, Charaji's sleeping now. We'll come back in the afternoon. He goes for his walk at 4:00. We'll get to meet him there." And I said, "Okay, that's good." So went with them and came back, and we met Charaji on his walk.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I had in my head, we all think big about ourselves. I had this, because I had read books about when Swami Vivekananda met Ramakrishna.
Yes.
And he said, "Oh, you're
come.
Here. You've come."
I've been waiting.
I've been waiting. And so I thought, the Guru is going to be waiting for me.
At least he's going to special acknowledgement.
Special acknowledgement.
Yes.
And so when we're on the walk, and one of the other brothers who was there said, "Oh, Charaji, this is John Smith from Australia. He's come here to meet you." And Charaji comes round, he looks, he goes, "Welcome," turns away and starts walking. And I thought, "Oh,
that's a downer."
That's a downer. That was a downer. I thought, where's the big welcome and the, "Oh, John, you're here. I've been waiting for you," kind of thing. It wasn't there. And anyway, he went for his walk, and it was really strange because there was about 20 or so people following Charaji on his walk, and it was like we feel like a bunch of sheep or something, bunch of sheep following the lion, and I felt very odd.
You don't know the protocol. What am I supposed to do?
What am I supposed to do? And I just started chatting to some of the other people. There was a few people from overseas, particularly France. And, just started chatting with them and whatever, and just having a bit of chit chat. Charaji was walking, we just followed behind him, et cetera, et cetera. And then eventually, when we got back to Gayatri, where Charaji lived, the satsang would be given. And so it was my first meditation with Charaji. We all sat down on the floor. In those days, Charaji also used to sit on the floor on his deerskin. I don't know if you've ever been to Gayatri, but he would sit cross-legged on the floor, on the deerskin, and he would conduct the meditation. And it was phenomenal because for me, I just felt this connection into the heart space. I felt this, this divine love coming from the Guru, and I was in tears and awe, and I just felt that I'm here. I'm at the feet of the Master. I found what I'm here for. And I was only meant to stay 1 week in Chennai. Because my plan was to go to the Himalayas, and that was to continue with my search.
Yes.
Because the Himalayas is the place you go if you're going to now go for finding enlightenment. And once I was there,
you were diametrically opposite on the other end.
On the other end, yes. So this is not the Himalayas. This is Chennai. This is hot and stinky, and not stinky, but it was stinky, hot weather and sweaty.
Sure.
And but there was the Guru. Found him, found the path, and just so overjoyed. You can't give words to such feelings.
Absolutely.
Of being in the presence of the one you've been looking to find guidance from, and there he is in front of you. And it was just beautiful.
So did your 1 week plan work out, or did you cancel your further travels?
My 1 week in Chennai ended up being 3 months in Chennai.
Wow.
Yeah. And along with that, some travels with Charaji, where he was traveling to.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so very, very nice. This is how I became a preceptor also. I can share
on that first trip?
On that first trip, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I took my first sitting, I think it was on the 2nd of May. I arrived at the feet of the Master on the 12th of May and was there and enjoying the sittings and whatever it was.
This is the hottest time of the year.
Very hot, yeah. And one afternoon, the group of overseas Abhyasis who were there were going to leave. And so there was a lot of question and answer time with Charaji, who made himself very available, answered a lot of questions about the practice, etc. And a question by one of the Abhyasis said, Charaji, we're going back to France or Germany, etc. What sort of company, whose company should we keep once we go back? And of course, Charaji said, you should keep company with other Abhyasis. That's the best company you can keep when you go back to your country. And I'm thinking, there's no other Abhyasis in Australia. So I pipe up with my little mousy voice and say, Charaji, there's no Abhyasis in Australia. Who do I keep company with when I go back there? And so he says to me, we'll make you a preceptor and you can make Abhyasis so you can keep company with some other Abhyasis over there.
Oh, nice. Wow.
But it didn't really hit me what he'd said at the time. It sort of went over my head. Because I'd only been practicing for 2 weeks.
Sure.
I'd only been meditating for 2 weeks in Heartfulness. And so it almost like it went over my head and I didn't think about it. Everyone had gone. And then one time there was a traveling time where Charaji was traveling to Calcutta. So I asked him if I could come. He said yes. On this flight that we were going to Calcutta with him, there was only 2 Abhyasis and Charaji.
Oh, wow.
So here we are on a flight with him going to Calcutta. I sit on one side of Charaji and the other sister sits on the other side of Charaji. I mean, we can't believe how lucky we were to be in such proximity of the Master at that time, and how now we realize how valuable that was. And, so we fly to Calcutta. And this was a very interesting time for me because I'm still new, still adjusting to being with Charaji and, but I've accepted everything. Unfortunately, when I'd arrived, I came down with very bad stomach pain. I was very ill and a lot of problem. And so when we arrived, I just wanted to lie down. And anyway, the hosts had made beautiful food, beautiful display of food because we were all there and they went as their guests. And so I was lying down and Charaji came and said, look, food is ready, dinner's ready. Can you please come and join us? And I said to Charaji, I can't, I'm so sick. I really can't eat. He said, no, you have to come. I was trying to get out of it, but he said, no, you have to come. So I went to the table and by the grace of him, he was at the main table. I was sitting next to him. I was feeling really awful. I mean, physically awful. Charaji gets some poppadom and he puts it on my plate. I eat the poppadom and it was just like my consciousness just went.
Wow.
Like that.
Wow.
It was like I was like floating out somewhere. Charaji gets another bit of poppadom and he puts it on my plate. And I eat it. And it was like, oh, now I'm going even further out. I mean, I'm out of the house. I'm not even sitting in this unit anymore. I'm like,
Wow.
my consciousness is just going somewhere. He takes again another bit of poppadom and he puts it on my plate. And I eat it. And the thought came to me, if he gives me one more piece of poppadom, I'm not going to survive.
You're out of here.
I'm out of here. And he didn't give me any more poppadom. I think it was good. I think he realized that, hey, I think I've taken him to where he could go. If I give him one more, he's going to disappear from this planet. And that's what I felt. It was amazing.
The magic poppadom.
The magic poppadom.
Wow.
I'll remember those poppadoms forever and ever.
Incredible.
And then
you felt okay.
Yeah. And the other thing that he gave me, which was really weird, he says, oh, rasgulla is good for tummy ache. I come from, like, my background from then, I'm a macrobiotic person.
Mm-hmm.
I eat brown rice, vegetables with maybe a bit of pickles. I don't eat
no sugar.
No sugar.
Mm-hmm.
No sweets. Okay, I don't eat sweets. And if I'm sick,
you couldn't get anything sweeter than a
couldn't
rasgulla.
get anything sweeter than a rasgulla. And I'm thinking, how can rasgulla help you with stomachache? Anyway, Charji gave me the rasgulla. I ate the rasgulla, and guess what?
Your stomach ache's
My
gone.
stomach ache's gone.
Yeah. But you know that, I think actually that works because we had a Cocker Spaniel once and, we used to give him chicken and the chicken was there and it was raw and we were just going to cook it, but the Cocker Spaniel couldn't wait. And while we weren't in the kitchen, he jumped up on the counter and ate the raw chicken. And of course, he had a terrible stomach upset. And then the vet told us, just give him a rasgulla. And we were like, a dog, a rasgulla? He said, no, for the tummy, it's just perfect. And we gave the Cocker Spaniel a rasgulla, and sure enough, he was fine. So
amazing.
Maybe there's something in that rasgulla. You know?
There's definitely something. I don't know whether it was in the intention or the sankalpa of Charji or the rasgulla itself. I'm not sure, but it worked.
But if anybody wants to try it out, what's the harm? Just keep eating rasgullas.
Yeah.
It's a pleasant medicine.
Yes. It was a very pleasant medicine. Yeah.
So then did he make you a preceptor in Kolkata?
Yeah. So what happened is, this was probably a week after he'd said, I'll make you preceptor and you can, make abhyassis and you can keep company there. And so at that time, then that came back to me. It was in the subconscious. So in the subconscious, it came back to me and I started thinking about it and I thought, oh yeah, maybe I should accept what Charji said. And I think it was in Calcutta and I said to him, oh, Charji, do you remember you said that you would like to make me a preceptor and I can make some abhyassis for keeping company? He said, okay, good. We'll start tonight.
Wow.
And then my preparation for being a preceptor started. So
wow.
I think it was roughly 7 or 8 sittings face to face with Charji in those days.
Incredible.
Yeah. And every time I went there was just an incredible experience to get that experience from him every time.
Of course.
One-to-one.
Of course.
And I remember in one of the sittings, it was another one to blow me away. He sat down, and I can't remember if it was the first or second meditation, and he said, please start meditation. And all I could feel was like, when they talk about paramanas, the divine, even if it's not so much the pranahuti, but it's the essence that's given from the guru. Because his whole subtle body is emanating, his physical body, his Anandamaya kosha is emanating divinity. All I could feel was like particles of paramanas, divine particles.
Wow.
Just coming over my whole being.
Wow.
And I'm just sitting there and I'm thinking, when these things happen, you can't fathom what to think or what to do. It's just such an experience that takes you into a different space altogether. And, you're in awe of the master.
Absolutely.
You're in awe of what they're giving you. In Heartfulness and Sahaj Marg, it's for free. You're getting this. You're getting this darshan. You're getting this most. What we call these experiences, whether you call them cosmic, universal, whatever they are, and yet we get them just because we're interested to know about spirituality. We're just interested to have
a willingness
to be in this path.
Yeah.
And it is phenomenal.
And then how was that journey as a trainer? Do you remember the first sitting you gave?
I do remember the first sitting I gave. We didn't get trained in those days as they get trained these days.
Yeah. I mean, I was talking to Christine and she said all Babuji told her was just go do the work.
Yes.
That was pretty much all the instruction she had.
That was pretty much it. I think there was maybe 10 sheets of paper.
Oh, okay.
that talked about a little bit about what you kind of should do. I don't know whether I really read it or not, but anyway, because by the time I had a chance to read it, one of the other people at ABS, he said, were jumping on me saying, "Oh, can I get a sitting from you?" You know, because everyone seems to think there's a special sitting from the first time you give a.
Oh yeah, I heard that too. It's the first one.
The first one.
First one is
supposed to be special. So of course you don't know until you give it. And so someone had sort of jumped on me very quickly and said, "I want to get the first sitting." And so I said, "Okay." And, sat down and closed my eyes. Had no idea what I was meant to be doing really, but then you just start to feel the effect that the transmission starts to flow from your heart to the other person's heart. And, and then you're just thinking, "Oh, wow, this is awesome." That here I am giving transmission and then observing, and you start to observe the condition in the other person. You start to feel certain vibrations. You start to notice certain things happening. And then you say, "Okay, well, let's start suggesting that that's being cleansed away." And it just sort of unfolds in front of your eyesight. Well, not your eyesight, your closed eyesight. It just unfolds in front of you as it's like you're perceiving something that I've never sort of perceived before.
So was there ever any sort of doubt that sometimes you may think that, am I really doing this? Am I capable of seeing this and giving a sitting?
Yeah, the first sitting seemed to be, for some reason, I seemed to be able to get a good perception of things of what were going on. Counter to that, afterwards, maybe I started doubting myself and my whatever capacity that the master had given me. And I started being that doubting Thomas and thinking, "Oh, I can't really read the condition. I can't really do this." Or, the transmission would still be felt. But I started doubting my own capacity. And I remember one time going to Chariji saying, "Oh, I can't really read the condition of the Abhyasi, and I don't know if I'm really capable of the work." And he said, Chariji was just like, "Don't worry. You've only been an Abhyasi for 3 weeks. Don't expect too much." Like 1 month, I'd been an Abhyasi for 1 month. So he said, "Look, don't expect too much. You're hardly even into the system. Give a bit of time." But the doubts were there. There were doubts there at times. And he was very supportive and very loving in his way of supporting you and whatever.
Absolutely.
Never took, and then he would sort of give you the confidence,
So true. So how long then did you stay on in India after that?
Okay, I stayed until I was meant to leave India, I think it was on the 20th of July.
Okay.
All right.
And 2nd of May is the time you arrived in Chennai?
Yeah. 12th of May I arrived in Chennai.
12th of May, okay. You got your first sitting on the 2nd of May in Mysore?
In Mysore, yeah. Yeah. So 12th of May I was in Chennai, and then I was made a preceptor sometime in late June or something like that. I can't remember. And then July I was leaving back for Australia. And then there was all the talk about Chariji's 60th birthday celebration, 24th of July in Ahmedabad. This is the first celebration for Chariji as the master. They'd never celebrated before. And so when I heard about that and my visa was running out on the 12th of July, I thought, I went to Chariji. I said, "Chariji, I want to be there for your birthday." He just said, "It'll happen." So I had to sort of, first of all, go to a GP. I said to them, I still had some issues with my tummy problems. So I said to him, "I've got tummy problems. I can't get on the flight. I can't go."
Be sure not to stay off the rasgullas, just in case your tummy became okay.
Became okay again. So don't take any rasgulla. Let your tummy get bad again. Go to the doctor and he'll give me a prescription and give me a certificate to say I can't fly.
Can't travel.
Can't travel. And then I had to get my visa.
Except to Ahmedabad.
I can travel to Ahmedabad by plane. No, but actually we went by train, by the way. Didn't fly. Okay. So that was okay. But I can't fly back to Australia at that time because my tummy was too bad. I got my visa extended for 3 weeks. And then it was such a beautiful time to be with Chariji during that event of his 60th birthday celebration. Honestly, again, another beautiful moment to be there before I came back. And just another way to sort of immerse myself into, I would say, the sittings that we had during that event. I was just like, I was going into samadhi every meditation. Wow. And there was one very embarrassing meditation that I'll share with you. So, I'd be sitting cross-legged. Most of us were sitting cross-legged in those days. We didn't use chairs. Chairs was not used in those days, not even by charity. So we're all sitting, someone sitting in front, I'm sitting here. And as soon as I closed my eyes, my head would just fall down like this. And I kept on bumping into the person in front of me.
Yeah.
And I'd come up and I'd try to kick myself up. And 2 minutes later, or maybe, I don't know, but boom, and I'd fall on the person again.
Yeah.
And then I did that and it happened a third time because I was just going into samadhi every time. Couldn't keep myself out of it. And I thought, my God, if I fall in this person once again, I think he's going to turn around and punch me. But, people in India are super tolerant, I tell you.
Sure.
It was almost like he was probably thinking, oh, lucky person, but watch my Australian language. Lucky person. A lucky person for him. And he was probably being ecstatic because I'm going into samadhi, who knows, but yeah, he didn't say anything. He was very tolerant, super tolerant. But I couldn't keep myself from falling into samadhi and just losing body consciousness each time.
Incredible. Incredible. And then after the celebration, you're back to Australia.
Back to Australia. That was the sort of the, coming back to Australia was tough in some way because I'd sort of just left everything.
Sure.
Work, whatever I was planning to do.
So you have to pick up the pieces again.
To pick up the pieces again, yeah.
Yeah.
So there was a little bit of a struggle.
And now you're also, did the physical distance from charity make a difference also? That you weren't having group meditations and stuff like that?
Definitely. And I'd have to say that I sort of, even though I was doing my practice regularly, I was mainly because I had a discipline from doing the TM before in my yoga practice. I was a disciplined person.
So you were doing your own sadhana?
I was doing my own sadhana. Getting new people to join was the difficult part.
Yeah, and you must have felt duty-bound because as the young Jedi sent out into the...
Yes. You've got to go and make some ABSs and have some company with some people. I did have some good yoga friends, but they lived quite a distance. I came from the western suburbs, and the western suburbs was more like, I would say, lower middle class area. And so even spirituality in that area was even less thought about than other places.
Of course.
So I would have to travel all the way into the city and meet my other yogi friends. That's where I used to practice yoga. And I introduced several of them. Mm-hmm. So we would have our group meditation on a Sunday in the city. And I would travel about an hour and 15 minutes to come in there. And we'd sit together and we'd start having group meditation.
Wow. It must have been exciting when, from one Abhyasi in Australia, from John Smith, it becomes John Smith plus one or plus two.
Yeah. It wasn't plus many, but it was half a dozen.
Wow.
And today there's still some of them there practicing.
Incredible.
Today, yeah.
Incredible. But there must have been many challenges too. I mean, because as you said, this thing is very new in Australia. It's not really, and the Australian lifestyle is a very full lifestyle in the sense that you're playing sports, you are working. There's very little time for anything else, actually.
Yeah.
And and you're spending your evenings at the pub, so so it's a full day.
Yeah.
And how do you factor meditation in?
Yeah. It was challenging because most people couldn't really understand what I was doing or why I was doing it. I even had a nephew who one time asked me, he said, "What are you doing all this practice for? What are you doing all this meditation for?" And the only answer I sort of could give him at that time was I said, what I'm doing is what most people are going to be doing in 100 years' time. Everyone will be doing it. I mean, that might have sounded a bit pretentious. I didn't know what else to say to him, but that's what I sort of said to him.
Yeah.
Because if I spoke to them on the spiritual level, they didn't really sort of get the connection about what was there because they didn't have that craving or they didn't have that that sort of wanting it. And unless you got that somehow craving to be there, you couldn't really get into it. Now, I did introduce both my sisters, of course.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
That must have felt nice.
Well, it was.
I mean, they introduced you to meditation.
They introduced me to
introduced
meditation.
them to Benchmark.
I did introduce both of them. One of my sisters didn't continue, my older sister, but my younger sister, she's been an ABSE now pretty much since then.
Wow.
Yeah. And she was also a TM meditator as well, as you know. And then soon after, instead of having her photo of Maharishi, there was a photo of Chariji sitting on her table. And
lovely.
Yeah.
Lovely. But yeah, that is a challenge. I mean, do you think that there are people I mean, some people just don't feel the need for spirituality, just don't feel the need to add something to their lives.
Yes.
You know? And as you mentioned, like when you were surfing, it was pretty much the flow state. I mean, it was, you can call it meditative. I mean, it's a very strenuous activity, but it's almost meditative, as you said, when you're riding the wave.
Yeah, when you're riding a wave, that flow state.
So, you know, and some people just get it from there. So, was it, are there people who just don't need to do it?
I don't know if people don't need to do it. I think people didn't either understand or know that this was really what they should be looking to connect for. They were finding their connection externally. And as you mentioned, in Australia, it's quite a full life. We got beautiful beaches, nice weather.
Nature's been kind to Australia.
Nature's been kind to Australia. We were a reasonably wealthy country. We were...
And a small population and extreme amount of wealth makes everybody happy.
Makes everybody happy. You know, so why not just go to the pub and drink some beer and stay happy? And, you know, so I think there was this false identity of happiness in Australia. And I think it's still there, mostly, because we still seem to have a low population compared to most countries.
Sure. And lots of natural resources, minerals and all sorts of stuff.
Although climate change is certainly
it's playing its part.
Its part. And it's people's consciousness is starting to change. But it's by nature pushing them. And, you know, and not only that, it's been a little bit of a slow development, but you do perceive in Australia now, like in America, I would say, USA, that people's awareness is opening up a lot more. And a lot more people practicing yoga specifically, because in Australia, people do seem to have a strong connection to the physicalness.
Sure.
Like sports. As you know, we're a big sporting country. You know, we recently just beat India in the...
Yes. You don't need to remind us of that.
I wanted to make sure.
That was so heartbreaking because we won every single match going up to the final.
I know. Unbelievable.
That was the one we lost.
I know. The one that lost was the one that we needed to count the most. I thought I'd just put that in there.
Yeah. Well, after beating us in the Test Championship, of course.
Or in the Test Championship.
In England.
England. Yes, I know.
It's terrible.
That is terrible. But, you know, we're a physical sporting country, and it's sort of been there ever since the time of Federation. You know, and of course, ever since the time of Federation, we wanted to beat the Poms at whatever we can try and beat them at.
It was the Poms, then was the America's Cup, the sailing.
America's Cup.
With Bob Hawke telling everybody to take a day off.
Was it Alan Bond who was the owner or captain of the...
Yes. And that was legendary stuff.
Legendary stuff, yes.
And these are like in the history of the country, they're like the red letter days, you know, the stuff that really matters.
Absolutely. Because Australia in those days was still trying to find its identity, and I think it still is trying to find its identity. And the beautiful thing about Australia today is it's become very multicultural. In the day that I was growing up as a youngster, we had what was called the White Australia policy. That means if you weren't white, you couldn't migrate to Australia.
Okay.
That was kind of what was there. Now, I think it was in the 1970s that changed, and it was a great change to bring place, because then we started having immigration from various different cultures, be that from India. India specifically was one that started to migrate there, even some from Asian countries, from African countries. And so we've got this beautiful melting pot of cultures, which in Australia seems to work. We do seem to celebrate diversity in Australia.
Absolutely.
You know, and I don't know where it came from. Maybe it was because, you know, we also took a land that we said was terra nullius, and that was incorrect. Of course, that was a big lie. The Aboriginal people were the original landowners.
Yes.
We still have to deal with that lie that developed 250 years ago, and make amends of that. And we're slowly coming into that. But because of that, I think there's also this acceptance of other people to come in. And so therefore, it's like, okay, whoever comes here is kind of welcome. And welcome to do whatever there is that they like to do, whether it be their faith, whether they do their sports, their different things, their different cultures. And it's become a nice melting pot for like a universal country.
Sure.
You know, without saying that we're not, even though we still are part of the Commonwealth and we still accept the king to be the king of our country, we don't identify ourselves as being British, if that would make sense.
Sure.
We're Australians.
Yeah.
And Australians is different. It's different in the way that we have an identity, and our identity is multicultural, and that's how we are. And we accept, we not only do we accept it, we're sort of joyous about it. We find that that's something to be celebrated.
Wow.
Mm.
That's so beautiful.
Mm.
That's so beautiful. So going forward, what do you think are like the whole world says that they are going through a mental health crisis. Is that the case in Australia also? Because stress is a huge killer worldwide. There's so many illnesses that are sort of because of stress people are facing. And especially mental health is a big talking point. But in terms of Australia being such a blessed land in a way, natural beauty, so many opportunities to be outdoors. Do you think that Australia's fared better than the rest of the world in that scenario?
I think in the sense that we haven't had the sort of massive populations, we haven't had the same issues of survival that we've had to be challenged with. Like, if we would look at India, for instance, on a day-to-day level, especially during British rule or whatever, survival was tough.
Yes, it wasn't guaranteed.
It wasn't guaranteed.
Yeah.
And therefore, it was a tough life, and it made them, but they also had a beautiful cultural background, and they had a lot of faith and understanding, and they used that to make them it was an asset for them to be able to survive, and to not just survive, but overcome it, and then have their sort of independence, etc., through their faith. Non-violence. In Australia, we've had it kind of easy for a very long time, but now we're finding that these things are becoming more and more difficult. Life is becoming a little bit more difficult, a little bit more challenging. And therefore, this mental health and well-being, as in America, is soaring. It's becoming an issue. Whether that be in the health field, whether it be in the business field, corporate field, or whether it be in education, or just general lifestyle. There's an issue, and that issue has to be dealt with, because if it's not, things such as suicide is increasing, and that could be from highly academic people. It's not just people who are struggling on the lower level.
Yeah, so it's not related to economic means or anything.
Yeah. There's a little noise in the background there, and I think it's my phone. Do we?
No, that's okay. You can answer your phone.
You'll just need to switch it off. I do apologize.
No, you can answer it if you need to. There might be someone.
No, it's an alarm. I was.
Oh, it's not on? Oh, it's an alarm. What's that alarm for? It's your 1:30 beer, John?
Yes, it is my 1:30 beer, and I should get there. Sorry about that.
Yeah, not a problem.
Yeah.
These mics don't pick it up though, because it's,
okay. Well, that's good.
It's okay. Yeah, that's not.
Yeah. So this is becoming an issue, and it's a mental issue on the sense more of a social issue and sort of the social IQ. All right. Now we talk about mental IQ. There's a social IQ. There's spiritual IQ. So it's really the social IQ, I believe, in like places like Australia, which is causing a lot of suffering. People are suffering from loneliness. They feel isolated, even though, we talk about being connected in the internet world and, Facebook, Instagram. Sure. We say this is a connection, but they're not. What are they being connected to? It's not to another person. It's just media. And people seem to be lacking a real connection, even within their family, of, having the proper connection. We don't have this sort of social system like, say, is in India, where your family, your extended family is there. So if someone is suffering in the family, everybody's suffering.
Yeah.
And therefore, it's everybody's situation, it's everybody's problem in the family, and everybody does something about it. In Australia, you start to suffer, and I think that was partly my problem too, as I was growing up, was that I felt isolated. And in my suffering, I didn't know who to talk to, who I could share it with. And in a way, it was a blessing, but it was also suffering. And I would say that there was also a social mental issue that I was facing through in my own upbringing that led me towards spirituality. And this is what we start to be, because people don't have this connection. They're not having a connection with themselves properly. There's not the deep connection within the family as what it could be, as what it should be. It's more like a material connection. And whether that be even in sports, like, oh, it's got to be a physical achievement. You got to look good. There's the body image that's, driving people crazy today, because, oh, if I don't look like I got a six pack and I've got muscles like, Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'm not good enough. Or if I don't look like one of the models in the images that I'm seeing in the magazine as a female, I'm not good enough. And people are thinking that it's the physical level of existence that is important, when we know that in a spiritual level, that's the least important.
Yes. And also there's been the debate about sports. I mean, love for sports is one thing.
Yeah.
But then love for winning taken to the extreme, that you, by any means necessary, you need to win. That is something that, especially in Australia, there's a debate raging that, do you play for the joy of the game, or do you play it just to win at all costs, no matter what? And driving people hard. So, but do you think meditation in such circumstances could be something that more and more people turn to in Australia?
I think it will. I think it's slowly moving towards that more and more people will do meditation, probably even yoga practices. That they start to see there's a benefit from there. And I do believe that as people struggle more and more with this social IQ that they're struggling with, that they will start to seek, as I did. And they'll want to seek an answer, because the answer is not going to come through medicine. Taking a pill is not an answer. It's only suppressing the problem. And it might might help you to get to sleep for the night. But the long-term issue needs to be resolved. And there's only one way that we understand that really resolves that. And that's to connect with inside yourself and to have that spiritual connection, which also enlivens the social connection with inside yourself and within your community, whether that be just within your family or extended family or your community, that then gets nourished.
Sure. So how easy has it been for you, John, to be committed to your own personal practice without this large community that we have in India of people meditating? And it's easy to find a group in India. So it must have been difficult to create a group. And is it difficult to do it in isolation?
Initially, it was, because I didn't have a group around me to do the practice. But I was quite fortunate that, 6 months after coming back from my first visit to India, I was back to India again.
Oh, nice.
And, back, to the feet of Charaji and practicing meditation and being around him and being in that sort of environment. And also then having the blessing to go to Cormet, which was the big stepping stone for the first preceptor seminar.
Oh, yes. We've all read the transcriptions of Charaji's talks there.
Yeah. So being part of that.
Yeah.
And just being part of that sort of learning process was really special.
Incredible.
Yeah. But it was very difficult in those first 6 months. I sort of, introduced a few people. We would meet regularly. We would be doing, because we were such a distance away from each other, it was remote sittings. So I'd call them up on the phone, say, "Oh, are you ready to start meditation?" Put the phone down. You
didn't do the flying doctor. We always read about the flying doctors of Australia who got on a plane and hopped out into the outer.
Oh, yes. No, we didn't do the flying doctor, but we did do a lot of traveling in those days. I was, I think it was a few years later that, I got married to Danielle, who's my partner. We both moved. We were in Sydney and we traveled around a lot to Sydney to introduce people. But once we moved to Brisbane in Queensland, we were the only two preceptors there.
So did Danielle start meditation before marriage or after?
Before.
Before. Okay, nice.
Yeah. And I'd have to say that she's been my sort of, supportive person. And she's been a very dedicated person to spirituality and to the system. I would say even more than me, even though people seem to think I was. I seem to get the limelight, but she was really the one who was more and encouraged me. If it wasn't for her, some of the roles that I ended up taking up within Heartfulness, I don't think they wouldn't have developed. So I really had a strong pillar behind me not just a master, but now a wife and a partner in life, who was supporting me and encouraging me to be involved in heartfulness and to go further. And we spent a lot of time traveling around Queensland to different places, introducing people, trying to take up the work that was given to us. And we had 2 children as well. So
wow.
we, even from the time they were 8 months, we were on the way traveling somewhere, giving sittings. Even when Danielle was pregnant,
wow,
she would be going and traveling somewhere and introducing people and giving sittings to people. These days you get someone who becomes pregnant and they say, "Oh, I can't do any work. I've got to stay home." In those days it was like we just went and did the work.
Wow.
There was no we didn't put any issue that would prevent us from doing it, especially Danielle. I mean, she was amazing.
Lastly, John, I want to ask you that this whole journey of sadhana for all of us, it's never the same. It goes, it twists and turns and things like that. And sometimes Daji calls it spiritual fatigue or something. There's times when it's, or maybe there's just people around you or something. You go through tough times and you start to question, am I on the right path? Is this really it for me?
Yeah.
Have those moments ever happened for you, and how do you get over them?
Probably too many times. That's what we haven't delved into, isn't it? That's the part where it can be quite tough. It can be quite tough on a path, especially after you'd come back and felt that you'd found the path and the guru and everything else. Then what happens when this doubt comes into your mind, or for some reason you're not feeling that connection to the level that you had it before? And when I came back from my first departure from being with Charaji and then come back the second time, the first week that I was there, I felt no connection. I was hoping to feel that connection that I had before, all those beautiful experiences, beautiful moments.
You want to replicate that?
I want to replicate. I come with the expectation that this is going to happen again. And it was like flat. No experience whatsoever. And I'm meditating and sitting, and Charaji's there on the stage and giving satsang, and I'm not feeling anything. I thought, is he really the guru? Am I still on the right path? Has something changed or something? What's gone wrong? And I don't know what it was. Luckily for me, after about a week, and I was really getting frustrated about, and I'm thinking, oh, do I go and find something else to do? No, honestly, it was like that. Maybe it was just the master knows that something's going on and he puts a little seed back into you. And it was just like, okay, just accept whatever's going on. You're not going to get that same experience. Just take whatever's coming to be what's there. And as soon as I had that thought, then I started having experiences again.
Wow.
Like maybe not to the same level, but things were happening. Things started to shift, and I started feeling this connection with the guru and the master and the work going on again.
It's interesting because I think we've all read that Babuji spoke to Lalaji about the final condition that he felt, and he felt it's nothing too great. So Lalaji said, "Oh, I could take it away from you if you don't like it." And he said, "No, please don't. I can't live without it." So,
yes.
So there's also this plainness that comes in that sometimes can be, sometimes you can't figure out what it is, but it's there, and you mistake it for nothing being there, but the thought of it not being there is unacceptable.
That happens often. Often happened to me. Of course, I'm not talking that I've got to that level of Babaji or anything like that. That's a very high state that he's talking about. But in the what we call, when we talk about the yatra, we talk about the journey, and we talk about the different points and chakras that we go through. And at each point in each chakra, there's the first of all, entering into the point, then there's the settling into the point, the merging of the point, and then there's the identicality. Now, when you're in the state of identicality, there's no more experience. It's like a flat state. So every point has that state of, I'm not feeling something anymore.
Yeah, it's just plain.
It's just plain. But you've got to sit, you've got to be in that state for some time before you're ready to move into the next part of the journey. But that's the most difficult part on the journey, is sitting in that. It's like sitting at the airport waiting for the airplane to come and take you off, and sometimes the airplane gets delayed and you're sitting there and, you're sort of wondering, oh, what's happening? Why am I not moving? You feel frustrated internally. you feel like somehow there's the sort of the craving and that sort of wanting to be even with the master is not there. Because a lot of this craving and a lot of this pull comes from the master himself. Sometimes we think it's our own, but it's actually, I believe, stimulated a lot by the master. And this is another beautiful thing about heartfulness is that, and Babaji said that, 1% of the work is in the meditation, 99% of the work was all done by the guru, by the master. And we don't really know what that work is. I mean, we experience it to some level. And there's a lot of the subtle work that goes on, when we're moving into the points and we're sitting there. It's almost like he then creates the right atmosphere for us to be able to go to the next point. We don't. I mean, we say that we're cooperating by we're doing our practice. But the real essence of everything is coming from him. Even the states, the craving states, I believe, sort of somehow he creates them in us, and then we respond. And then we can go to the next level. So it's really by the grace of the teacher and the system that we move from whatever point we're at to get to the next point. And and this is also another part that happens is that we'll get into this state where I'm not feeling too good, I'm not feeling like I'm progressing as fast as I'd like to, or I'm not getting to this particular level. And then we're lucky that we have enough money to be able to come back to India again and again. And then, of course, being here in Kanha, being here, even though we're not seeing Daji every day or whatever, but we get to have meditations with him. He'll be very gracious and give us some time that he'll give us personally, or, we could spend an evening with him. And that's as we say, the cherry on the cake. And that creates, again, the environment for us to sort of reach out and to want to go forward again. It's like, oh, yes, this inner beauty, this splendor, this grace, this divine essence we feel once again, and that just motivates us to want to be more and more involved.
Absolutely.
It's not like, I know you were talking about fatigue, and the fatigue will come, but when we get replenished and we come back into Kanha and we come back to be in Daji's presence, that fatigue goes pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And the fatigue goes, and it's like, like for me now on this visit, I just want to go back and do whatever I can.
Absolutely.
Ready to go.
You're like Steve Smith, ready to
Steve Smith ready
step
to
out
go
again.
Go and hit another century.
Not against India, hopefully.
No, we'll do that against England.
Well, thank you so much, John. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you. It's absolutely been a joy. We could go on talking, but... We could. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Rudy. It was nice to come and have a chat.
It's been lovely.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of KANHACAST. Please follow and subscribe to KANHACAST on Spotify, YouTube, and Instagram. Until next time, woof woof.